It says, Atmana Atmanam Pashyan Atmani Tushyati. So by that self, the self, seeing that self is satisfied. So this is what I'm saying, that subject, that process and that object, meditator, process of meditation and the object of meditation. When all of this are one or become one, that is a culmination, he says. So if you look at it, just for those who have a little interest or in the Sanskrit way it is. So first he says Atmana, that is the third case. And Atmanam, second case there, the object. Pashyan Atmani, in that self, which is the seventh case. So who is doing all that? The subject, which is the first case. So the first object, the subject, meditates on that self through that self, meaning that self meditates on that object through that self. That first, second, third cases of Sanskrit. So it is how it is taught. So here we can take it as the Trinity, the meditator, the object of meditation, and that process or the instrument through which you are meditating. When all of this become the same, then this is what that say, right? Meditation on that self or non-dual meditation, or we say where there is only vritti vyapti, no phala vyapti, meaning there is a thought, the thought of an object is there, the thought of pen is there, but there is no second thought which says, I recognize this pen, I know this pen. Why? Because the first thought which says, oh, this is the self, is itself saying that I, the self, is this self. So there's no second thought required. There's no phala. So that this is where he says this is the true satisfaction one gets, meaning the one attains that contentment here. The true contentment comes there. All other things, even the highest samadhi, that still doesn't completely fulfill you. You still have to come out of it. You still have to, uh, uh, meaning, be incomplete. You have to seek other things. So this process here he's making. He completes this by saying, Sukha matyantikam yadvat, buddhi grayam atindriyam. See this thing, ultimate happiness, the sukham atyantikam. This is the culmination of all happiness. This is that happiness which we are truly seeking in all other happinesses. And finding this happiness, we don't want any other happinesses. And he's going to say in the next shloka, Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha. Once attaining this happiness, you don't want other happiness, or you're not seeking other petty happiness. No? So we all know that, like there is a happiness of object, Vishaya Sukha, objects, people, movies, things to do. These are all the object happiness. Everybody is seeking that. And then there is the little bit of a Sukshma Ananda, got through meditation, studies, even studies also, and or japa, or going to some beautiful places, or going to some having some, healthy food. So all these are also a little bit like a sukshmananda, meaning it is not gross happiness. This is more subtler happiness. This is sadhakas are initially seeking that sattvic happiness, but that also is not going to satisfy us. And this happiness, where the self abides in that self, where the self finds through that self the culmination in that self, that happiness is the supreme happiness. This is atyantikam. Buddhi graya, the intellect will grasp that, because happiness at that point is still experienced by the mind intellect only. So what we were originally finding happiness in the world, we find it internally in that Atma Tattva. And then we are truly content. No, we are not. So all our insecurities, all our sense of incompletion, everything will fall away. No? Uh, and then he goes on to say, this, what is the nature of this sukha? He says the nature of this sukha is that it is atindriyam. It is not of the senses. He wants to clarify, maybe it is through some kind of some special technique, or now sometimes nowadays people say, right, like through some kind of special drugs they go into some state and all that. So of course, that state, the experience is that sukham, but that sukha is also temporary. But here atindriya, not derived through any senses. It is not even initiated through senses, not triggered through senses, not something that is a culmination of senses, even at a subtle level. No? So even that subtle happinesses we experience, there is a little bit of senses involved there. Like if you are, if you enjoy a beautiful song, so that song as such, you're not grasping at that song, but it gives a certain, like even a devotional song it can be. It leaves a certain kind of a purification for the mind and senses. There's an effect on that. So here it is not even that. But it is the most gratifying, it is the most fulfilling happiness. Vetti yatra na chaivayam sthithas chalati tattvataha. So once established on that, that person will not deviate, meaning he will not come back to worldly happinesses, or he will not get lost in these things. Veti tattvataha. So this happiness is what all of us are seeking in wrong objects, in wrong pursuits. So until we don't realize it, we will keep going in that. So when the mind is able to come back and abide in that, so an example can be something like how a river, a river, until it is a river, it is flowing. But once the river merges into that sea, that ocean, it becomes vast. It finds that natural fulfillment. Or like it's like sometimes you can see in the sky, right? A cloud, a cloud slowly is dispersing into that sky. So similarly, when we are starting with that kind of a localized, or a attention, our subjective attention we are starting out with. In our meditation, even meditating on self, it starts like that. It starts like a subjective attention. We are placing our little attention on that object of meditation, which in this case is this ocean like consciousness. So but yet as we go through, then we as we get an experience of this awareness or this consciousness, then the that anchor of that mind will detach. So this is that unbinding of that mind has, and focusing on that object into that nature of that consciousness itself. So that is that complete freedom, that complete happiness. Well, I thought, the closest to this is a very good quote from Ramana Maharshi. He mentions that when he had a spiritual awakening experience, right? So he talks about it, where he says that when he was inquiring into that self, you know, so I will read this part where he says, where he first he had a glimpse of that self. From that moment onwards, the I or self focused attention on itself by a powerful fascination. See, this is what the mind drops, the Atma, which was the mind in the first place, drops in that self, meaning the mind gets sucked into that self. And then he goes on to say absorption in the self continued unbroken from that time on. Other thoughts might come and go, like the various notes of music, but the I continued like the fundamental Shruti note, meaning the main note, the main music note that underlies and blends with all other notes. Whether the body was engaged in talking, reading, or anything else, I was still centered on that I. Previous to that, I had no clear perception of myself and was not consciously attracted to it. So, this is what we are saying, right? Like initially, we took it as an object, but at that point, that mind gets sucked in, drawn in into that self. And that is what the lamp example, then the becomes steady and you are drawn and you are stable in that.